Legal bookkeeping, an exercise on correspondent transactions and accounts. You are instructed by your correspondent to recover 5,000 Rand from XYZ on behalf of his client, ABC. In executing the mandate, the following transactions occur. You charge an instruction fee of 120 Rand. You pay a tracing agent 100 Rand. You issue summons and charge a fee of 180 Rand, and XYZ pays you 2,400 Rand of the debit. In debiting the fees, you are entitled to collection commission, and provision should be made for VAT at 14%. The usual 1/3 allowance is also applicable. You are required to record the transactions in your books of account and account fully to your correspondent by preparing an account statement. There are 5 parties to this transaction: you, your correspondent attorney, your tracing agent, ABC, who is your correspondent's client, and XYZ, who is the debtor of ABC. Firstly, you post the cash transactions in the cash books. The first cash transaction is the receipt from XYZ. Remember the rule: debit the receiver and credit the giver. You post the receipt of 2,400 Rand from XYZ to the debit side of your trust cash book. The second cash transaction is the payment to the tracing agent. Apply the rule: debit the receiver and credit the giver. You post the payment of 100 Rand for the tracing agent to the credit side of your business cash book. The reason it is posted in the business cash book is because we did not have funds and used business money to pay for the tracing agent. You then post the non-cash transactions in the journal. Instruction fee of 120 Rand plus VAT was raised. Debit: the correspondent, in the amount of 136 Rand and 80 cents. Credit: fees for 120 Rand, and credit: VAT for 16 Rand and 80 cents. The correspondent attorney is entitled to 1/3 allowance on this instruction fee. The transaction is posted in the following way: debit: fees for 40 Rand. Debit: VAT for 5 Rand and 60 cents. And credit: correspondent for 45 Rand and 60 cents. A summons fee of 180 Rand is raised. The transaction is posted in the following way: debit: correspondent for 205 Rand and 20 cents. Credit: fees for 180 Rand. And credit: VAT for 25 Rand and 20 cents. The correspondent attorney is entitled to 1/3 allowance on this summons fee. The transaction is posted in the following way: debit: fees for 60 Rand. Debit: VAT for 8 Rand and 40 cents. Credit: correspondent for 68 Rand and 40 cents. You are allowed to charge collection commission on the amount that was received from XYZ. Amount received from XYZ was 2,400 Rand. You are allowed to take 10% collection commission. This amounts to 240 Rand. The transaction is posted in the following way: debit: correspondent for 273 Rand and 60 cents. Credit: fees for 240 Rand. Credit: VAT for 33 Rand and 60 cents. The correspondent attorney is entitled to 1/3 allowance on the collection commission of 240 Rand that you have received. The transaction is posted in the following way: debit: fees for 80 Rand. Debit: VAT for 11 Rand and 20 cents. Credit: correspondent for 91 Rand and 20 cents. All the journal entries get posted to the respective business ledger accounts, which are the correspondent business ledger account, the fees ledger account, and the VAT ledger account. Before we pay the correspondent attorney, the business account must recover the following amounts: the instruction fee amount, the collection commission, and the tracing agent fee. The amount due to the business is R510.40. Before we pay the correspondent attorney, we transfer R510.40 to the business account from the trust account. The balance of R1,889.60 will be paid to the correspondent attorney. The correspondent attorney's trust ledger account shows, on the credit side, the payment of R2,400 received from XYZ, and on the debit side, the transfer to the business account for R510.40, and the payment to the correspondent attorney for R1,889.60. The business ledger account for the correspondent attorney will balance as the monies have been recovered from the trust account. This is the end of the exercise.